Proceed.
All right. We'll ask for witnesses for the defense then. Yes.
Place your left hand on the Bible. Raise your right, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Please be seated.
Right here, like right in front of you directly.
Okay.
All right, Ms. D.
Mr. Rodrigo, I know you can't see me very well. I'm over here. But can you tell the jury what your name is?
My name's Antoinette Smith Yarborough.
Okay. And what's your relationship to Travion Smith?
This is my baby boy, my son.
Okay. And how many children do you have?
I have 4 boys in all.
And can you just tell us their names, starting with the oldest and going to the youngest?
Darius Smith, Corey Smith, and Aaron Smith.
So Darius is the oldest.
Yes.
And then Corey.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Aaron.
and then Travion.
Yes.
And you're, do you live here in Raleigh?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And where do your folks live?
Where I'm living at now?
Where do your parents live?
Oh, my parents live in Franklinton, North Carolina.
And did you grow up in Franklinton?
Yes, I did.
And do you have some siblings?
I have 2 sisters. I have a twin sister and an older sister.
You have a twin sister. What's her name?
Annette Bullock.
And what's your older sister's name?
Marion Jonah.
So you and your sisters grew up with your mom and dad in Franklinton?
Yes.
And you're married now,
Yes, I am.
and that's the last name Yarborough is your married name,
Yes.
and Smith is your maiden name.
Yes.
And prior to your current husband, were you ever married before, or is your current husband your only time you've been married?
That's the only one.
What's his name?
Gregory Yarborough.
Gregory Yarborough.
Yes.
Okay. So when and can you tell us when was your oldest son Darius born?
He was born December the 1st, if I can remember, 87, somewhere along there, 87.
Okay. So in the mid to late 80s somewhere.
Yes.
And then your next son, Corey, when was he born?
They were born 2 years apart, so he was like...
The late 80s.
80s, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, do you remember when Aaron was born?
Aaron was born April the 12th. Like it's 1992, 93, somewhere along there.
And then Travion, do you remember when Travion was born?
December the 6th, somewhere along there. Yeah, December 6th.
Of 1994?
Yes.
So there was, so Darius and Corey are quite close in age, and then Aaron and Travion are also very close in age.
Yeah, but they all close to, you know. When they would get time, they all spend together. They all spend time together when they get together.
Okay. So your parents What are your mom and dad's names?
My father's name is Edward Smith. My mother's name is Louise Smith.
Louise.
Smith.
And what was your dad's name again?
Edward Smith.
Edward. Louise and Edward. So
Mhm.
your parents, Louise and Edward Smith, they raised Darius and Corey.
Yes, ma'am.
And when Darius and Corey were little, were you living with your folks? Were you living with your parents?
No, I was living in Raleigh because I was working in Raleigh.
So you don't remember ever living together with your parents when the boys were small?
No.
Do you remember did your mother have, what's your memory of how your parents came to raise Darius and Corey?
I'm able to talk to my mother about helping me out taking care of Darius Corey because their father wasn't in their life. So I had to do the best I could. I got to go and find a job and start taking. But I did send money to my mom, my parents, for Darius and Corey. But at the same time, I was still going back and forth checking on them.
And your mom and dad were willing to raise those boys, but they weren't willing to let you stay in the home. Is that correct?
Actually, I didn't really want to because I knew what I had to do to take care of my children.
Okay. And you saw Darius and Corey infrequently when they were growing up.
Mm-hmm. Still do. Still do.
And then you had the two younger boys, Aaron and Travion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about what was going on with you around the time that those two boys were young, okay?
Okay.
Do you remember there being a number of times when either your family members or friends would call the Department of Social Services and there would be investigations about what was going on with you and the boys?
Actually, I didn't know nothing about it till they came knocking on my door. And I knew it was my mother. I knew it wasn't my parents, so it had to be somebody staying in the neighborhood. So I finally figured out who it was.
Okay.
And it was like spreading rumors. But the lady came out to my house. She said she didn't see anything wrong with my house. I told her I always keep my house clean. And she said, yes, it's like it's pretty clean to me. I said, that's why I keep my house clean. The same day she came by.
Okay, so you don't remember anyone in your family ever calling the Department of Social Services?
No, ma'am.
And you don't remember any of those calls being related to times when you might have been staying with family members?
No, I can't remember.
So the only calls that you remember have to do, when you say in the neighborhood, is that when you're talking about when you lived in the townhouses over on Hare Snipe Court?
Yes, ma'am.
And so your recollection is that there was one time that a lady came and said that your apartment looked clean and she didn't see any problems.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only time you remember there being any issues or contact with the Department of Social Services.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned there were some people in the neighborhood. There was a lady in the neighborhood named Laura Cannon who helped you a great deal with the boys, particularly with Travion when he was little. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember she'd come and get, she loved babies anyway. So she didn't having the kids her own, so, she liked to babysit Travion and stuff. Come and get him when she wants some company.
And he would...
Yeah,
Did he attend any kind of daycare when he was little?
Yes.
And would the daycare providers bring him home?
They bring Aaron and Trey home they pick them up in the morning and bring them back in the afternoon.
And would the boys go to your house or would they go over to Miss Cannon's house?
They come straight to my house.
And after after September of 1994, by September of let me back up. ultimately, Aaron was raised by his grandmother, Earl Dean Bailey, correct?
Yes.
And after September of 1994, you didn't have any of your boys in your home after that. Does that sound like about the right date?
That's right. Yes.
Travion Smith's father, what's his name?
Michael Clark.
And did you date Michael Clark for how long do you think you dated Michael Clark?
I can't remember, not too long.
Okay. And do you remember how Michael Clark felt when he found out you were pregnant?
Yeah, to me, he wasn't too happy.
Okay.
He wasn't too happy.
And what were some of the ways that you knew he wasn't very happy?
The way he treated me.
Did he do anything to you once he knew you were pregnant?
He tried, but it didn't work.
What did he try to do?
He get physical with me. But, after he did, I left.
So, I believe what you just said is that he got physical with you.
Mm-hmm.
But you said he tried, but it didn't work.
No.
And so, if you could just tell me what you mean by that, what you mean that he tried to do, but that it didn't work.
Actually, I left. When, he first time he tried to do it, I left. And I can remember I left and went stay with someone. I couldn't remember who it was.
Okay. Because so the two of you were staying together some around that time.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because of the.
Yeah, we was staying together, but he wasn't there that much, so we'd stay in a room off of Newburgh Avenue.
Okay.
And so I was there pretty much by myself up to the Travion's, till I got in a level with Trey.
Okay. And when you say he got physical with you, do you mean that he tried to hurt you?
Yeah.
And
tried to punch me or something like that. Yeah.
I think you said he tried to punch you in the stomach.
Yes.
And when he found out you were pregnant with Travion.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you say he tried and it didn't work, did you think that he punched you in the stomach for a particular reason?
Because he didn't want the baby from me. That's what I'm thinking. He didn't want the baby, but I had him anyway. Because that's my baby boy. Like all of them is.
And you feel strongly about the fact that they're all your baby boys.
Yes.
And when you were in the hospital giving birth to Travion, do you remember talking to the social worker at the hospital?
No, I haven't really remember talking to her.
Okay. Do you remember that you didn't have very stable housing at the time that Travion was born?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And do you remember that there might have been somebody at the hospital that talked to you about some of those issues?
Yes, they told me going to a shelter with Aaron and Trey, so I went to the shelter downtown Raleigh. Okay. And I stayed there for like a month, so I got into housing. That's how I got into housing.
And do you remember that the social worker talked to you about whether you had considered putting Travion up for adoption?
No.
You don't remember any of that conversation?
Uh-uh.
But you feel strongly about the fact that they're all your boys, right?
Yes. Wish I could have been there more than what I could do. But I had to do something to, make sure my boys stay in their family. But I never didn't want to get them up to adoption or nothing like that.
I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, go ahead.
Okay. In 2002, do you remember receiving some treatment for substance abuse back in 2002?
Yes.
And did you receive that treatment because of alcohol and cocaine and marijuana use?
Yes.
And do you remember how long you stayed in that treatment?
I stayed till I finished.
Do you remember about how long that was?
I think it was, I can't remember how long it lasted, but I stayed through the whole program.
Okay. Was it about a month maybe?
I think so. I believe so, yes.
And do you actually have a pretty good memory of that little chapter of time or not?
It's been so long.
Do you remember whether you were going to have a rare visit with Travion during that month-long time that you were in treatment?
Yeah, pretty much. You know, Trey, he'd come to my house. You know, he's very, he loves to play all the time. You know, but he come and I give him something to eat, whatever. He back in and out, so that's like a normal kid do.
Okay.
Eat everything up.
So you don't remember having any particular conversations with the folks that were there giving the substance abuse treatment about the fact that you were about to have a visit with your youngest son?
No. But I remember, no.
Do you remember talking to anyone about the fact that it was hard to see Travion sometimes because he would always ask you whether you had been drinking and ask you whether you were sober?
No. I stayed sober for a while. Yeah.
May I have just a second? Talking to us today as well.
Cross-examination, Ms. Shakita.
Ms. Yarborough, you had said that it was important that they were all your boys and you did the best for them that you could. Is that safe to say?
Yes, ma'am.
And when people would talk to you about giving up your children for adoption, isn't it true, or wouldn't you say that you would make sure that they had family members that they could stay with?
Yes, ma'am.
I think you said that your parents helped you raise Darius and Corey, right?
Yes.
And then Aaron went to live with Miss Bailey, and she was able to provide for him.
Yes.
And those were decisions that you helped make, isn't that right? That is, that's who they would go to live with.
Yes, ma'am.
And when is it safe to say that during the course of your life that you've struggled with some substance abuse issues?
Yes, I have.
And you said that you tried to get clean on several occasions, right?
Yeah, I wish I did. Yes, ma'am.
And during those time frames, did you make sure that Travion could stay with either Miss Cannon or his father?
As he was like back and forth.
Back and forth with them, right?
Yeah. Then sometimes, some days he comes spend nights with me.
Right. And you, during the course of his whole life, would see him periodically. Isn't that safe to say?
See him like mostly not. I see him, but not all every day.
No, but from time to time, there's never been, for example, years of his life that you haven't seen him.
No.
And when you weren't able to provide a stable home for him, was it your understanding and your wish that his father help raise him?
Yes.
And you had said early on that he was not happy about having, about you having Travion, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
But as he turned, say, 4 or 5 and started kindergarten, didn't he live primarily with his dad?
Yes.
Okay. And you would see him during those time frames, say, elementary school, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And at that point, was it your understanding that his father, Mr. Clark, had gotten remarried? Or had gotten married?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you recall that substance abuse treatment that you talked about, that was about a month? One of the main reasons you went in there is because you wanted to do better by your children.
Yes, ma'am.
Aaron, your next youngest child.
Yes, I do.
And you said the older ones are the ones that you don't see very often.
I see them too.
Okay, you see all of them still.
Yes, I still see them.
you described the fact that you still have relationships with all of your children. That is Darius, Corey, Aaron, and Travion. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And of those other three, have any of the three of them been charged with murder?
No, ma'am.
I don't have any further questions.
Redirect.
Ms. Yarbrough, you just told Mrs. Shakita that it would never be, I think you said, even a year between the times that you would see your boys. In fact, it was years and years and years between your visits with all of your boys when they were growing up. Isn't that true?
Yes, ma'am.
And you live here in Raleigh.
Yes, ma'am.
And how many times have you gone to see Travion since he was arrested on these charges?
You know, sometimes it's hard for me because, you know, I'm vision impaired. And it's hard for me to get somebody to come with me to come see Trey. And most people be working and stuff, but I try to get down here plenty of times.
So you actually haven't come any, is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Until the trial started.
Ms. Shakita, anything further?
No, sir.
All right, thank you, ma'am. You may step down. This gentleman's going to help you.
Okay.
Further evidence for the defense?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense is next going to call Quentin Bullock.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Quentin Bullock, I was just, he's sitting on the road the other day.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right, please. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you give this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. D.
Mr. Bullock, thank you for being here today. Can you please introduce yourself to the jury so they know who you are?
My name is Quentin Bullock. I'm Travion's uncle-in-law. I'm married to his mother's twin sister.
His twin sister, Annette. Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. And you and Annette have been married for many years now. How long have you been married?
We've been married for 24 years this year. Been together about 30. Yeah.
And you have some children?
Yes, 4.
And you live, where do you live?
We live in Youngsville.
So not too far from where Annette's parents live.
Oh yeah, about 10 minutes.
And did you grow up in that area as well?
Yes.
So did you know both Antoinette and Annette growing up?
Yes.
And Antoinette has 4 boys, right?
Correct.
And who raised her older 2 boys?
My mother and father-in-law.
And did there come a time after your mother-in-law and father-in-law had sort of taken over raising Darius and Corey that Antoinette was staying with you and your wife, Annette?
She would come from time to time, but she never lived with us.
So she would come and go.
Yeah.
She would come and go from Franklinton and back and forth to Raleigh.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Pretty much.
And did she live other places as well sometimes?
Yeah, but I never really knew where she lived. She would just be here a second and then she'd be gone. Never knew where she lived.
Was she kind of a rolling stone for all those years?
Pretty much.
But she would stay with you and your wife sometimes.
I'd go, there were times when I would go get her if she was like in distress. I'd find her and I'd go and get her and bring her to the house and she'd stay a day or two. And she'd take off. She never lived with us for any extended period of time.
But you would try and help, you would try and provide sort of a stable location for her when she was in crisis.
Yeah, if she wanted one, she was always welcome.
And did she, were any of those times that she was staying with you some after the birth of Aaron, her third son?
I don't believe she stayed with us after Aaron, that I can remember.
Do you remember having an opportunity to call the Department of Social Services because you were concerned about Aaron?
Well, I was always concerned. To be honest, I thought about since we talked, I don't remember making the call, but I don't deny it either because the information was true.
So you're saying since we spoke, because you and I met one day and talked.
Yes.
And what was one of the main things that I wanted to talk about when we met that day?
What I knew about Travion's upbringing and internet stability, things of that nature.
And specifically, did I have some records with me?
Yes, yes.
And what were those records? Where were those records from?
Department of Social Service, I believe, and information about calling, about concerns about her whereabouts and the kids' safety and things of that nature.
And you said that her whereabouts and the kids' safety.
Yeah.
So whose safety specifically was it that was at issue at that time?
The way I remember Antoinette's behavior, I was concerned about all of their behavior, except the older two, because I knew who they were with. But I was concerned about all of their safety.
So this was back would it help if do you remember the time frame that you and I talked about that day? Was it in the early 90s, 1991?
Yeah, it had to be early 90s.
And what was it about? And so at that time in 1991, Darius and Corey were living with your mother and father-in-law.
Right.
And Travion had not yet been born.
I don't think he had been born.
So at that time, what were your concerns about Antoinette's behavior that made you call the Department of Social Services?
It would have been my concern about her just being stable and taking advantage of the opportunity to be there for her own children. Because we had the same amount of children, somewhere close to the same period of time. And my concern would be, mamas just don't leave the children like that. That would have been my concern.
And where would she leave them? Where would she leave Aaron at that time?
The farthest back I can remember about Aaron is that his grandma had him. But the two older ones, they were left at a babysitter across the street from where we lived at the time. And I have to be honest, she just didn't go back to get them. And it was days before my in-laws found out they were over there. And she went and got them.
And that's when your in-laws took the older boys.
Yeah.
And so at this point, you don't remember her doing something similar with Aaron.
I don't remember because I wasn't as involved with her when Aaron came along, as we all still lived in Franklinton when the first two were born. And I wasn't as involved with her when Aaron came along.
So you have distinct memories of the fact that with the older boys, she would just leave them with whoever and not come back and get them.
Oh, I remember that well, yeah.
And you have less distinct or no memories of that being also an issue with Aaron.
I don't have any memories of or any information of Aaron being just taken and left. As far back as I can remember is when I found out his grandmother was taking care of him.
And you also don't have an actual memory at this point of calling the Department of Social Services?
I don't remember making the call, but the information sounded like me. I just don't remember. It was in the early 90s, and I was a musician at the time, doing a lot of traveling, so I don't remember actually making the call, but the information that I read, pretty accurate.
And that information being the fact that she would go.
That she might have took off and left and the kid was just somewhere.
I'm just saying. You talked about sometimes you would have to go and sort of get Antoinette if she was in crisis. What kind of places were those where you would have to go and get her?
Well, there's this one time I remember distinctly. It was probably after midnight, and she called my wife, and she was crying, and she was upset, and she was just saying, I just need y'all to come and get me. And we got up out of the bed, and we went to Raleigh on the south side, and we picked her up from what was then, known as a place where they, after hours place, a crack house, alcohol house or something like that. And she was crying, and she was just in the pieces. And we went to get her, but that particular time, after we stood up there and talked with her a while, she got herself together, and she didn't come back with us. So,
She wanted you guys to come, but she didn't go back to your practice.
right.
And during those short times where she would stay with you, did you and your wife have any rules that you wanted to be followed in your house?
Oh, yeah.
And was
Lots of rules.
Antoinette good about following those rules?
Not so much.
And do you say that you weren't around her as much when Erin was young, and so when she was pregnant with Travion, but do you have any memories of her behavior during that time period?
Well, as far as I could see, her behavior never changed, over all those years. It was always, she'd be around a little bit, and then we wouldn't hear from her or know where she was for months at the time.
And also her behavior in terms of drug and alcohol use, was it pretty
It
consistent?
was always there.
Mr. Keeter, Mr. Waller.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Bullock, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Mr. Bullock, it sounds like you and other members of the family were doing everything you could to help Miss Yarborough out. Is that right, sir?
Yeah, we would do whatever we needed to do.
Okay. And you didn't mention much about your interaction with Travion in response to Miss D's questions. What was your interaction with Travion Smith?
We didn't have much interaction with Travion. He came by the house a couple of times when he was little. I remember him spending the night with us once when he was real little, late 90s. And the only thing that I could tell about him is that his mood seemed to change quite rapidly. Like one minute he would be laughing and talking, and to the next minute for hours he'd be just kind of isolated, just kind of. And he was a little kid then. That's as far back as I can remember.
But Travion's, he's family to you, right, Mr. Bullock?
Yes.
And you've talked to this jury about how you're willing to help out family, including Miss Yarborough when she was going through tough times.
Even if it's not my own family.
If did Travion Smith call you on May 13th of 2013?
I don't know.
He didn't call you.
I don't know.
If Travion Smith had called you on May 13th of 2013, would you have been willing to have him come into your home?
I would have been willing to listen to the circumstances.
And you'd have taken care of him like you had other members of his family?
Depending on the circumstances, because like as she said, we had rules. My children came up with serious rules.
Sure.
And depending on the circumstances, it would have been possible.
But Travion never reached out to you for help?
I know he called my daughter. He called my youngest daughter, but I don't remember him actually calling me.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. I don't have any further questions.
Ms. D. All right, thank you, sir. You may step down. go ahead and take a 15-minute recess at this time, and we'll resume at 20 minutes past 11. So, members of the jury, all of the rules and instructions I've been giving you throughout the trial continue to apply. Don't talk about this matter among yourselves or with anyone else. Don't form or express opinions about the outcome, no media or independent investigation into these matters, and no conversations with parties, witnesses, or lawyers. If you'll gather in the deliberation room at 20 minutes past 11, leave your notebooks in your chairs, please.
Argument more that during her opening statement, Ms. Chiquita did make references to Ronald Anthony's sentence and conviction and talked about the jury's evaluation of it, which we will be submitting as a bit of an opening of the door about how we can respond to it.
We'll hear arguments on that matter at the appropriate time, but the motion in limine remains in effect. It's in effect. Any other matters? All right, we will be in recess till 20 minutes past.
Superior Court stands in recess till 11:40.